but I'm going to step aside now, and we are going to turn this over to Paul. Paul, are you ready for us?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let me share my screen here, and we'll jump in. Good day to everyone that's joining today. I know the XPM team is sitting in one of my favorite cities in the U.S. of St. Louis. I love great baseball city by the Mississippi River. I miss it. Hopefully we're back there in person. I'm off the Oregon coast here outside of Portland, Oregon. So I'm excited to talk to you today, and I'm going to present on service management overall. And Steve, definitely keep me honest on time, because I can say a lot about this, but I will keep an eye on the clock here. And I know we've got a break coming up, and I want to kind of break this up in a couple of parts, but a little bit about myself. I've been here 6 years. It's been an amazing journey in that 6 years. I come from an ITSM consulting background with many of the tool vendors in the space, a little bit of Splunk in there as well. And just bringing that knowledge, and that's why I joined Atlassian 6 years ago, Atlassian was just getting started, moving into about 2 years into that journey in the IT space. It grew out of learning from customers that were using Jira for IT support. And I think it was like 40% of the time. There's a Ship It project that kind of launched the prototype. Fast forward today, and over the last year, we've seen an accelerated pivot into overall service management, and especially enterprise. That's my focus in the team that I work with in Atlassian. It's dedicated to enterprise organizations. So let me get forward. I'm going to move forward. I'll kind of give you an overview. I'm going to focus on just big picture, what we're seeing from a services perspective. Very disruptive year in many ways this last year, but we're also seeing a lot of innovation. That's one of my favorite things about, I spoke 3 customer calls last week. I'm looking forward to hearing from James and the Finish Line story as well, just how customers are pivoting and changing the way that they deliver support. So I'll share a lot of those stories. Once I get through the big picture, I'm going to start putting into place Atlassian's approach in the way that we view the market and the way that we work with teams, and the way that we approach this isn't just technology. And technology is an important part of it. There's an emphasis on cost savings, and I'm going to talk about that, but I want to show you how it fits to a team and the way they work. And then we'll get into the features. And at the very end, I've added some roadmap slides to talk about where we're going. So obviously the services world is changing.
Sorry. Before you get too far, I think you're sharing the screen of your notes and not.
Thank you. Yes. Why did it do that?
Technology.
So let me, I bet you I hit okay. So let me end share here for a second. Thanks for calling that out. I hit the wrong button. I needed another cup of coffee this morning. So you should see do you see the primary slide now?
Yep, there we go.
Okay. Yeah, I hit the wrong button. So the world we're in right now is changing in many ways, figuring out how to work remotely. So many different forces that are coming against businesses in ways that they didn't anticipate. Sometimes it's accelerating, sometimes it's causing organizations to shift. We're definitely in a services first world. And what's fascinating to me of organizations that started out more on the brick and mortar side, that our primary reach of our customers, the way that we deliver services, insurance company I was talking to a while ago, and the pivot towards digital only is accelerated even more so in this world. As you think about today as a consumer, what we rely on, what we use, how much it's via remote access online and all that, it's a critical aspect. Great innovations going on across the board as organizations are learning new ways to reach and work with their customers, or inside of the business, even with their employees. Now, behind this, Atlassian's mission is to unleash the potential in teams. And why we believe that is behind every great service innovation, great delivery of capability is a team. And so we always start with, how can we help teams work better together? Now, so teamwork is vital, but we also know one other aspect of that. Teamwork can be very messy. You get into the complexity of an enterprise organization and a lot of moving parts. And we have silos of just ways of working. It's inherited throughout the way that we work sometimes. And one of the things that we're learning and also helping here is to be able to start to unlock and remove those silos. And it starts very small sometimes, and sometimes this can be very transformational what's going on in the organization. I took out a slide here, but there is a lot of research. I was going back through a recent Forrester research on cloud, and Gartner has some very similar ones, in that what's driving the innovation, what is allowing teams to move faster in more innovative ways, is cloud. We've seen that for quite a few years. The adoption rate has gone up. And so one of the things I want to start with today is Atlassian's investment in cloud. Our platform is built in a way that does three key things that I want to talk about. First of all, we're about connecting the way that people work and the tools and information. Break the silos down and bring the age of distributive work, especially now in that we have to work remotely, and remove these walls so everyone's connected and has access to the right information they need. The Atlassian platform powers close collaboration across the business. So whether I'm in IT, there's a new initiative starting up and I need to understand what's going on, I can simply mention the business stakeholder in my ticket and bring them in to collaborate with there. So that level of collaboration and visibility is key. The other thing is, and we've seen this, is that things are accelerating. So how do I lead with change and still have that speed and agility? The other part of this is we need to provide the data that helps teams learn and the technology that helps them execute on it. And that's where the platform comes in, allowing us to ready right out of the gate to make better decisions. And I'm going to point a lot of this out. There's a significant investment around our AI capability that we've had for years. We're very intentional in learning, and some of that is coming directly into the product. You'll see some of that even in the demo today. Support innovation through autonomy. This one I love. The command and control days of centralization are over. We can't do that in the way of working remote. And what we're doing here, you'll hear a lot about a team autonomy, that I have a team that I want to go ahead and separate out and work in their own way, but I still have oversight, reporting, metrics. But now they're actually empowered if they want to change their queues, the automations, their request catalog, and the request in ITSM offering, they're empowered to do that. They don't have to always go back to the central admin. So team autonomy is really, really critical. It gives the team's freedom on the Atlassian platform to build bespoke solutions that fit the needs internally to the business or ultimately touching the customers. We made a pivot towards our cloud platform probably, let's see, if I go back to when Mike Cannon-Brooks was on stage, well over 3 years ago now. And when we started to go this direction, we re-architected. And so if you look at the bottom there in the platform, we built something for compliance, security, and governance. We're very open about that. If you go to the Atlassian Trust website, we're open about, from a security standpoint, from a compliance, our roadmap is fully open. You see the other areas that we're addressing as we are, globally of customers moving as very large enterprise customers. But the other part on the scale and performance, I think we have early access. We're at 30,000 and moving into the 50,000 tier for customers of those size of organizations, for workers in Jira software, Jira Service Management, Confluence, all of that. And the reason why we're able to do this is we are a microservices architecture on an AWS architecture globally. That means that as a customer, you don't have to worry about the upgrades. You see the new features, you're aware of them, but you don't have to wait for that next upgrade path. And that's really critical, we know, in the ITSM world. Other three key areas is automation. It's a platform capability that I can automate key aspects or enforce certain things. Low code, no code in that fact. Extensibility. There's different ways that it's extensible through the API or other ways that you want to extend and integrate. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, the smarts and insights. Smarts being the AI, ML capability that our team has built. A lot of the team out of Sydney and that region working on this, and have brought a lot of innovations. That has allowed us as an organization to build on this platform, to reimagine a lot of the experience and the capabilities for our customers. And then add to that the second largest app store in the cloud world today, the marketplace. If you're looking for an integration that meets your needs, you will find it there as a great starting point to save time, but yet still it's not going to break the bank of your budgets. Now I'm going to focus in on ITSM for those types of teams and service management teams, but keep in mind, this is a platform across the flow of work. We're going to see that come up quite a bit. Now, one of the things from Gartner back in 2020 was this report is the roadmap for IT service management for 2019 is really well worth reading. Lots of fantastic insights. They looked out over the horizon of what's it going to look like when we get to 2025. I think it's actually changed significantly and accelerated, but we see that the digital business is not waiting. I&O, IT needs to respond and come in line with those needs. And there are many things that prevent that. In fact, one of those things I heard from a CIO of a major bank out of England recently is the fact that they have adopted a certain platform in the service management space, and the adoption was very slow. It was causing a lot of barriers, especially where there's a flow of work for development teams. They were finding those friction points. That's why we were coming in to help them and work with them. And I think we've seen that time and time again. Traditional ITSM tools are built around modulars, process, and they create some silos in that way. One of the things we've taken is a different direction that will become very clear as I go through this. Now, the other part of this that I want to talk about is ways of working. Because at the end of the day, technology is going to be an important aspect, and we'll spend quite a bit of time about it, but it really comes back to how are we working? One thing that I've really enjoyed, especially I would say in the last 3 years, I've spent considerable time around learning about Agile. If I've come to the Agile space by joining Atlassian, and teams that we're using that already in Jira software, it is having an influence on IT teams. Agile practices, Agile approach are making their way in. Gartner also found in that report that if they do not adapt, IT organizations and start at least bringing more responsive Agile and lean practices, the business is just going to go around them. And I've heard story of that again. And we want to bring capability that empowers teams to do this. Now, how do we do that? Well, going back to, remember the mission I said is unleash the potential in every team. It starts with the team. And there are 4 key aspects I want to talk about before I ultimately get into the technology. I want to spend just a minute about culture. Culture is just as important as it is the way that people work in their practices, which includes process, flow of work, to the team agility or the structure of the team, that we can move in a new direction the way that teams are structured, and ultimately take the technology and the products and fit that to the way that they're working. And if I have to pivot, which I just heard this from a customer recently after an acquisition, they had to pivot in a matter of a couple of weeks to bring in this new part of the organization. And they were able to do that because they had a platform that fit that need. So I'm going to speak to these various aspects here before we will pivot fully into Jira Service Management, Atlassian's offering in that space. But I wanted to give you some things, and that's one thing when I speak to customers, I love these events, is I want to give you something valuable. That journey, if you're using Atlassian products or considering them, and that might be a little ways out as you work with the SPM team, I want you to give you something that you can practically take away and go back to your team and say, let's think about this. And I want to start with culture and strong practices. And it actually goes back to the DevOps report. If you follow, there's some great reports going back several years, and now Google, through their consortium, is actually running those. And the last 2 years' reports shown that high-performing teams are a combination of a strong culture and strong practices, those that deliver value faster, that are more responsive. There's various aspects in there. And what the key thing that has always stood out to me is there is a cultural aspect. Now, also, we've seen a change in this last couple of years, last 2 years actually, is ITIL. We hadn't seen an update in ITIL in 4 years. And I was a bit of a skeptic. I've seen value of ITIL, and I've seen some things that tool vendors, actually I've been on the implementation end where we've had to undo what we thought were best practices when it wasn't the way that they wanted to work. So ITIL has had a good and a bad, but the one thing was we went into is a little bit of a, I was a skeptic in that. When I got into that in early review, I was pleasantly surprised that the rewrite embraced lean and agile and DevOps thinking and approach. The reason for that is they went out to the industry and brought in authors across the spectrum. Now, one of the things that's really good in the ITIL 4 is it addresses culture. They call it guiding principles. A lot of organizations have this. You probably have something that you walk by and you see it on the wall, or the things that are maybe the organization has had in place for many years. But what I'm challenging and encouraging organizations, especially within teams, to ask yourself, what are your guiding principles that allow you to deliver service management capabilities? I really, really like these. If collaborate and promote, or focus on value, asking the question, what value will our internal customers have, our employees? What value will this deliver to our customers? Instead of just focusing on, well, we're just going to ship this, we're done, check the box, we're moving on. Or think and work holistically, that we ship things in smaller, measurable units of that value, but what's the holistic big picture we're going to? So there's a lot that's written about this. These, I think, come directly from Agile. In Atlassian, we have guiding principles. I hear them repeated all the time of what are the guiding principles that Mike and Scott put in place at the very beginning of the organization 20 years ago. That has had a lasting effect in the culture that we have in Atlassian. So this is an area that you just don't go and change from the top down, but it's something that you can advocate for at a team level, organizational level, and has a longer term impact. And it's worth the investment asking. The other part of this that you can take is something at Atlassian. We were growing so quickly several years ago that we wanted to come back to and say, all right, as we grow, and I think we're like 1,400 employees when I joined, and this came online a couple of years later. We're at 8,000 right now. So the growth has been phenomenal. We said, all right, high performing teams, what are the characteristics? What can we do to empower them to run a health monitor as a project team, service team, leadership team? And as a team agree, hey, we're not doing too well in this area. Let's focus in on it. Let's try something in this next month. And there are plays in here. In fact, there's 40 plus different plays helping teams uncover their blind spots. So this is both a combination of culturally, how do we work together? How do we partner in the organization? But it's also giving you practical ways with practices on how you can work. And that's how we connect these together for high performing teams. So take a look at that. It's free to the world. We've shared it with anyone that wants to use it. You can download the templates, bring them in, run them, start them as your team. Maybe you're thinking about this where you've really struggled with doing postmortems or continuous improvement, project posters, those kinds of things you're planning, those kinds of things that you have. Great insights in there. Now, let me come back to ITIL 4. The other part of it is strong practices. The other thing that in ITIL 4, we shift, from a focus on, first of all, it focuses on the delivery of value. What is that workflow? Where is that work stream, that value stream that will maybe go across multiple teams in the organization that ultimately is used and has value? It's co-created with someone internally, or it may very well be your customers. Where is that at, and how do you follow that flow? Well, the thing about the shift here is it goes from process. Process doesn't go away, but in the past, it was always like, here's the process, you got to follow it. That's what the teams were all focused on. But it really steps back and asks, well, all right, within that process, how do you work? Are you optimized? Are you a learning organization? So there are key things in here that as ITIL got a rewrite, really refocused on agile and lean principles that I think are super valuable. Now, I won't, for the sake of time, go through every single one of these practices. In fact, what I love is ITIL 4 in its guidance is you don't need to adopt every one of these. These are framework, guidance, ideas. Take them and make their own. What I love is it says, begin where you are. So when we partnered with Axelos in the early review, we said, we're going to go ahead and take that. We see some really valuable things for high-performing, high-velocity teams. We're taking more of a service software-centric approach. And we said, as we wrote this guide with Axelos in partnership, we asked the question, which practices would I adopt as an organization, as a team? And we came away with this guide that is just kind of a high-level starting point of some ideas. I think it's still the top downloaded guide of Atlassian's history that we have today, and this is 2 years running. So it's worth taking a look at. It's asking yourself, you think about that important work where you're parting with your development teams or your software teams, or operationally you own a good portion of that from a planning to supporting it. What is that flow of work, and which practices would you need? So here's what I did. I went back to the guide. I've actually added a couple additional ones that I'm seeing from customers. I said, all right, in the planning phase, where we have projects coming from the business all the time. We're going to move into cloud. We're moving off of our on-prem. We're going to roll out a new platform, a new product management system. There's that ideation and planning that probably will involve some development teams. But from an IT standpoint, here are some of the practices I commonly find. They have a portfolio of services are managed. Knowledge management is really across all of these, but I'll put it up front because that's where a lot of the ideas planning that will be shared out with other teams or knowledge artifacts. And then project management, moving from a waterfall. You can still do waterfall within Atlassian and Jira Software. Jira Software is great for non-software teams to do project management. So it's bringing these products together. When it comes to building this, removing those software. So I'm seeing more and more software IT organizations, operations teams embracing software development practices in their operations teams, removing those silos. We work side by side. Change management of the old school is now change enablement. How do I flow the work faster to deliver value faster, to break down the work, to automate? I'm going to focus in on that practice. And then deployment management. What used to be release management is now more of software related code. How do I manage it in a deployment mindset? Those are common ones we see. And then when we go operational, when that new platform management of my product services is available, we see incident management being very critical for service reliability. And it's not only the traditional incident management, it's a learning aspect. Almost taking your problem management and weaving it into where I'm focusing problem on the most critical outages and learning from them. And then service configuration management across the entire environment, especially as everything is trending toward cloud. What I have on-prem, what I have in the cloud, how do I better manage that? I'm going to talk about that one as well as incident management. Service desk, how do I support my team's internal, even vendor support? I see that a lot. I've worked with a St. Louis company that they support their vendors externally as a part of their service offering. And then request management. How do I make it more responsive, automated, knowledge-centric? And then finally, an important aspect that's in ITIL 4 is taking the improvement kata that's been around since the 1950s, that concept. Now, instead of looking backwards, I want to look forward. What's my North Star out for 1 year, 6 months, and taking continual improvement and applying it across the team. Ultimately, from I found the teams that are adopting this is an aspect that is about becoming a learning organization. It starts small and it starts to make its way through, but it really shifts the way that you can find innovation and ship greater value. Now, I'm going to hand back to Steve in just a second here because I think I'm coming up on my time, and we'll shift over in just a minute here, but I'm going to shift towards technology. So we've talked about culture and practices, team agility and the way that teams might align to this. So Jira Service Management is our offering in the space. Prior to this, if you go back just a little over a year ago, it was Jira Service Desk. And it is more than a rebrand. This is a new direction. We brought a lot of new capability that I'm going to talk about, and then you'll see that on the roadmap. But we really want to empower teams to deliver, value fast in what they're doing, make it much more open, collaborative. That is just the power of the platform overall, and improve that visibility. So I'll talk about a lot of these key things. I'm going to stop here and see what kind of questions we have, maybe take a question or two, and then also hand back to Steve for a second here to do a checkpoint, and then we'll continue on. So I'll stop sharing for just a second here. See what kind of questions here. I'll go over to the chat and see if we have any questions. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to post those over.
Paul, that was fantastic. Paul's going to be back in a few minutes to give us the rest of his presentation, but do we have any quick questions right now for Paul before we jump into the next giveaway? And again, we're going to have a Q&A at the end too, so as Paul continues to talk, if questions come to mind, you will have a chance to do that. All right. By the way, during Paul's presentation, I did post the Atlassian Trust link that he mentioned in the chat. Feel free to check that out. And you can see what Paul was talking about. Okay, we are going to do for our next giveaway. Are we showing this yet? No. We're about to show you. Okay, so our next giveaway is going to be something special. One of the things that XPM does and has been recognized broadly across the industry as best in class is our training core competency. And our flagship class is what we call our Jira Bootcamp class. This is a 3-day hands-on workshop-based class. And what Brian's showing here on the screen right now is a diagram called the Jira Project Setup. And this is the diagram that we use to help people to understand the moving pieces and the interactive pieces around a project. Now, we're showing you a diagram here, but one thing I do want to make sure you understand is that 99% of our class is not PowerPoint slides. We do not do PowerPoint slides in our classes. We bring you in as a admin in a platform, and your entire class is spent going through modules where you are learning and building. So not only are you learning about what the Jira Bootcamp project or the Jira Project Setup is, you are actually throughout the class and workshops building a project and understanding how you can how these different pieces of the database fit together and things like that. Okay, so for our next giveaway, we are going to be giving away a ticket to our Jira Bootcamp class that's going to be coming up in about 6 or 7 weeks from now. And so that is going to be the next giveaway we're going to do. And I've got my project coordinator, Heather, over there spinning the wheel. So Heather, who is the big winner for our Jira Bootcamp class giveaway?
like the idea that there's a wheel somewhere in the background.
Zing! This is about a $1,500 value.
Yeah, I think it's a number generator. I like the idea of a built.
And the winner is Brett Linen. And we are also including Confluence. Okay, so yeah, apparently as a bonus, you get Confluence Bootcamp as well. So our Jira Bootcamp is a 3-day hands-on workshop admin bootcamp. Confluence Bootcamp is the day after as a 4th-day rider. And it is a admin class for Confluence as well. And we get into why Confluence is not just a document tool, it is a content portal. And so if you want to learn more about that, you definitely need to check out one of our Confluence webinars and our Confluence Bootcamp class. And, okay, apparently we're getting excited here. Surprise, we have another ticket to give away. I'm gonna have to get back to that back office and control those guys back there. But we have another ticket to give away, so drum roll, okay? Who's our next person that's gonna get the Jira Bootcamp ticket? Okay, Razaveta Delcheva. I apologize if I didn't say that right. But Radazvada, are you here? It's okay. It's good enough. Good enough so we recognize his name. Perfect. Okay. Well, congratulations to both of our winners. Now's a great time for me to let you know that at XPM, we are, like Paul mentioned early in his presentation, we are about value and we are about providing value. If you talk to us, oftentimes our first conversation with clients is not only talking about our services, but actually doing something quick to solve one of their problems. And one of the things we do to add value all the time is we provide weekly webinars. Every week on Thursday at 11 a.m. Central, we do a webinar on a hot topic in the industry or some technical element around. We've got 2 webinars around Jira Service Management and ITSM. We have webinars around Atlassian Enterprise Governance. We have webinars around using Atlassian for business teams. We have a couple of webinars on how to use Atlassian tools for planning, including advanced roadmaps and Jira Align. So if you are interested in any of our webinars, go to our website, xpm.com. Heather, if you wouldn't mind just posting our website in the chat there, xpm.com, go to events, and you will see all of our upcoming events. All of our webinars like this forum are free, and they're there really just to provide value to the marketplace. Okay. Let's get right back to it. Paul, are you ready for part 2? You're muted.
I am. I was just trying to switch over to some headphones.
While he's doing that,
there we go.
You stick around. We've got a couple of more great giveaways that we're going to be doing throughout this webinar, so you do not want to pull up Anchor anytime in the next hour or 2. Okay, Paul, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am. And you should see the screen with the slide where we left off.
Yeah, we're good.
We got it.
Fantastic. So let's go ahead and continue on. I'm going to try, hold on a second. The video is blocking me up a little bit there. There we go. Okay. So we're going to pivot into and talk about how Jira Service Management can help a team, an organization, pivot into this practices-focused way of working. That everything you would do that you do today in IT service management can be there, but it can be in a way that fits your needs and also quickly pivot and evolve. And I'll run a reference and share some customer examples. So Jira Service Management on the Atlassian platform provides the ability with everything there. We call them templates as a starting point. We use there's a concept of a project that came from Jira software. I see it as a workspace. That workspace has everything you need of the workflows, the automations, the queues. We have a variety of them in there, including ones that are ITIL, focused. So I think we're ITIL V3 certified. We're looking at ITIL 4, but it's everything that you need as a team. But it's the other thing I've heard from customers is it's not over-engineered and over-architected in ways that you have to undo things. It allows you to get in, get you what you want, and then build in a direction or configure in a direction you need. And that's the other part of it, low code, no code in that direction. And we keep adding capability that's following that. What that means is I can take the practices that matter most to your part of the organization. Think about that flow of work, and different teams will work on different aspects. Not everyone's going to be involved in an incident. And maybe it's more common that people will be supporting service requests. So we have that ability to fit the practices to the teams. So you think about those teams that are involved in the planning and the delivery and building, and all those on the operational and those on the service desk support side. different practices. So it allows you to fit the practices around that. And we're going to see that in some of the examples. Now, for sake of time, I wish I had a considerable more time. It's, I had to kind of pick which ones, and I'm going to give you a highlight on all of these. There's quite a bit of depth in each one. I want to give you an idea around practices and what Jira Service Management can offer for an organization, as well as things to think about in the way that you currently deliver this IT capability in the organization. I'm going to start with one that's foundational: service configuration management. From a CMDB perspective, where we traditionally have known it, how do we create a unified services layer across what I'm doing that provides greater visibility? Really a key innovation that we've brought in the release of Jira Service Management. We shift from change management to change enablement. So how do we change things faster with that streamlined flow of work? We're going to see that and talk about it. Major outage incident response, we'll go through that, and then end up with service request management. So service configuration management, it's an area that it's a need, especially when we were running inside our four walls. We could discover in our data center and find out what's running there and tell me what applications organizations maybe were very good at a lower level. And so we have the ability to go ahead and take that information and make it usable. But fast forward to today where, sorry, got a golden retriever decided to squeak a toy there. It's the ability to bring in the cloud aspect. What we manage today is, if you go back to 5-6 years ago, it's very different. So what Atlassian is, we're looking at this and adding our CMDB capability. We started with an approach to really rethink the CMDB. The number of failures around this space is, I've come across a lot of projects and customers where they're just not, either it's failed or they're not getting the value out of it. And Forrester had a fantastic guide last year. Charlie Betts and one of his colleagues wrote this, and they said it is time to rethink that there is a need for this reference data. The master data management is essential, but does it have the information? And because of the sheer size of scale, am I overextending to having, two, I see a typo on my slide here, having no CMDB and having a perfect CMDB. It should be on the right-hand side. Some try for the perfect and end up that they have the wrong information, or it costs too much and process. So it's this balance in here. And this guide had a lot of really good things that it confirms a lot of things that we're adding to the product, that we can take that cost benefit, we can have sufficient completeness and ability to find where the detailed information is. And then finally, we can maximize automation. This is a key aspect that we've added in the addition of the Insight product to our platform. So last year, we acquired and added Insight. It is a CMDB capability. I consider it to be next generation in many ways to our overall platform. And I'll talk about that. I got backwards on my slide. But before I talk about that aspect, we added a new feature and capability to Jira Service Management with the release last November. We are investing in a platform level service capability. We've articulated this on a graph capability, so we know that, hey, this is the service. We're seeing the initial part that we've added. We know what it's connected to and related to. So we're creating this unified view of services across project and teams. What this does is it brings visibility and starts to unlock insights. So now I know that this service, what repo it's tied to, we'll see that here in a little while, of where I'm shipping code and things are moving through my deployment pipelines. I can also understand what it's related to from projects and tickets. I can look at in incidents, where are outages happening, what's the impact on that? And when I'm going to change something, we can now bring in and say, hey, you recently had these changes that happened that might be impacting the incident, or vice versa, these have some recent incidents. We're starting to apply a lot of our smarts capability around this. This is super exciting. But the question is, where do you begin? Maybe you've struggled in this area. I bring this in through a lot of research and also just experience in the years, is that instead of starting through discovering and finding everything, start with most critical, important to the business. Your services, you might call it your application, business application layer. What is it that you're tracking, that you're supporting as an organization? And then from there, start asking the questions of, how do you classify them? Some of these might be business or technical or application services that you manage. You also are able to find out who it is that owns it. This becomes really critical during outages that we can support in Jira Service Management when the outage happens. Who's using it? You can look at usage, consumption, those types of things. You can also look at functionality. What are the capabilities that are really critical to manage that? I've just reviewed with a customer that they've created a schema of their application portfolio that maps to the services, and they're able to start better understanding the functionality that they're supporting from a change perspective. Their business analysis, the metrics and analytics. One of the exciting announcements that I'll just kind of get ahead of a little bit here is that we are building, and we'll start to see this later this year, early next, is a complete analytics capability in our cloud platform on AWS Data Lake. And we acquired Chartio last year. And once this comes online, it's in early access right now, you'll have a level of analytics and capability. If you need to slice and dice that data in a way that makes sense, especially for what I'm talking about here, you'll have that built in overall with what you're able to do. There's great reporting there today, but we're able to just take that to the next level and layer. The next part is just where does this depend on? So we're able to say, if I have infrastructure, I can connect that infrastructure where it makes sense. Customer out of Australia I'm working with right now, they've modeled their services layer. I think they're starting out between the 40 to 50. Some of these are, tier 2, tier 3 technical, and then they're tier 1. And they're bringing in, some of this is on-prem, but what they've made a shift is the vast majority of what they manage, this is a telecom customer, is managed in AWS. So I have the ability to connect that data and bring it in where it makes sense. And that's what we're seeing is the appropriate data at the right level. The federation is also there for, in another case, they're going to have a jump link that actually goes out. And so if I'm in the middle of troubleshooting a major incident, I can get to the details that I need. So let's go on and let me just wrap up here. So what we've delivered, we've added Insight. Insight was built by a team out of Sweden, been in the marketplace for many years, built on the power of Jira. We launched the next version of that several months back, like 6 months now, in our overall cloud. We have a very strong on-prem offering as well for this. And it's a built-in part of the product and platform. Now, what you're seeing here is that services layer connects into your CMDB and Insight. Now, what that means is this way that you can create a data structure is easier to manage, and it gives you great flexibility to fit the data requirements and to the needs of the team. That means that in here, I see my services on the left-hand side. I can start connecting that to the different data, we call them schemas, data stores that you're discovering. This happens to be from Insight Discovery. I'm able to connect that with where that's running, or let's say it was AWS or Azure. And so we have the ability to create this data layer that's really valuable to a team, but really keep it at the layer that's most important, and that is around the services that your organization supports. We are bringing also our advanced data integrations that are just available to customers that are on our on-prem version to the cloud overall, and that is with AWS, Azure, and there's quite a few lists. It's actually on our public roadmap. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward here, but also just show you this Insight Discovery, bringing this data in, and that application discovery is available to customers as a part of the platform overall. There's an additional cost for that. It's just available to use. So a couple key areas, and these slides will be shared afterwards if you're not, can't capture some notes, but a couple of things to start where you are. I think that is one of the most important things. It's a learning journey. Start, be selective, begin small, learn and grow. A company out of Michigan I was talking to that has really gone on this journey and starting that way, and they're taking those lessons and carrying them out as they expand into other areas. I think embracing the agility with scalability across teams and all of that. So a lot of key insights there that we're learning from customers that we're adding into a lot of things that we're sharing. Now let's go into change enablement, about changing fast. This tends to be kind of a bottleneck. Here's a lot of the most common ones that we see, like tool silos, creating challenges, overextending freeze windows. Hey, if I freeze everything, then we don't have to worry about change causing an outage. And yet in the overall statistics here, it's still a high 70+% of major incidents are caused by, planned and unplanned changes. The other one is bottlenecks of cabs. Cabs are very important because that was the idea. They're an advisory to say, hey, this is what you should be doing about this type of work for compliance, for oversight. but they became the bottleneck. And I think that's oftentimes because of tool vendors in the past. One thing that we're seeing, and this is even going back to Gene Kim, we're advocating for moving away from a CAB and moving towards more service-centric approvals with the right teams, the right time. So a lot of things there. What we've done is made a very significant investment in the overall change management capability. Automation is a key part of that. One thing I didn't mention back on the seem to be part with Insight is automation is fully integrated there. Low code, no code, interacting with the objects. Same here with change. You need to look at, understand the risk of something. Automation can help you do that, or reclassify the ticket, bring in the data. I have a customer now that they're doing a lookup of the service. They're going and finding the infrastructure items at the application layer and adding them to the ticket as we see on the screen here. We also have the ability to stay in sync with our development teams through an integration with the most common CI/CD tools, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if I were doing anything right out of the gate to find a way to get rid of a bottleneck, it would be standard change. Standard change is really the new normal. Standard changes they're repeatable, they're lower risk, they happen a lot in organization. Just was reviewing this with a customer they're in South America. They have about 109 repeatable changes. They were moving out of another ITSM vendor, and they wanted to bring that over. What they were realizing here was that they were going to be able to use the portal for selecting those. Insight will drive the catalog of those selections. So they're going to realize even more, because those templates they were managing were very heavy and challenging. So they have the ability to do this and be able to move forward. You can also detect, collisions in your changes. You can take a look at your service impact. And we're seeing an automation rule on the screen. I think is really key. Automation is low code, no code. Your admin can simply come through and say, hey, when this happens and it matches this, I want it to do this. And you think of any way that you want to interact with a type of ticket, you have that ability with automation. So pretty significant there. One customer in Europe, it was in, I believe, actually in Sweden. They deliver benefits to all of the citizens there. They took 70% of their standard changes and automated it through the implementation. What that did for them, they stood on the stage in Barcelona and shared, that freed that team to focus up on that 30% remaining of the most valuable work that they can now bring other lean and agile concepts of breaking the work down and working there. One other exciting thing, there's a lot there on that previous slide I was going through what we've added of the summary, but one of those things is the deployment tracking. We want to bring IT and dev closer together, because today we deliver a lot of software code. And so we've brought some of the most common CI/CD tools, and this list will continue to grow, meaning that when they go ahead and push that code out to, could be staging, it could be only production, you configure that. We use automation to assess that risk. And we look at it and we say, hey, looks great based on the risk rules. And it's basically out of the box is the tier of service and a couple other factors. I've met some customers that are adding additional things based on their requirements. Or we can say, hey, that's a high risk change. I just need a review. And what we do in this case here is we look up and say, who's the owner in this service? Who's the team involved? I'm going to get them involved. So it doesn't have to sit there and wait for a CAB approval, but I do have some oversight of those higher risk ones. This is a really exciting area that we're going to continue to build upon as we move forward. Now, what does that mean for the developer? We have Bitbucket on the right-hand side here, whatever the CI/CD tool is. They're over there working through their code chip, and they'll know, and they'll say, hey, there is a change request pending on this. It's created a ticket in Jira Service Management that someone's notified about. And once they approve that and it's been reviewed, it's just going to go ahead and ungate that. The developer will get a notification on their side, but they don't have to go and create the ticket on the other side. I actually met a team just not too long ago that was their biggest pain point. We always have to stop when we're going to push production, and I got to go create a ticket in that system, and I got to wait for the CAB, which happens every 2 weeks or whatever it was he was saying. So huge frustration. Now we can improve that flow of work and make sure also from a compliance standpoint, these are great report data points that I can pull into compliance and auditing. So from a change enablement perspective, a couple things to take away. High-performing teams are going to automate those low-risk change, at least getting as far as they can down to where it's ready for implementation, and that DBA, the sysadmin, is not waiting for someone to review something that's low risk. We're also going to break down normal changes into smaller units of work, and we can start moving away from the CAB. Read a great article from IT Revolutions of an overall IT director. His organization they completely eliminated the cab. Now, the cab capability was just redistributed. It was decentralized into the service ownership and different service lines, product teams. And so they've realigned. What they've found is a phenomenal improvement in the overall delivery of capability to the organization. But it's something that took time. We're also going to maximize automation, and we're going to see where we can. We're moving infrastructure as code through the release and deployment practices. These are just some of the highlights of things that we've written about. I'll share a guide at the end that we call out even more of this. Let's get to incidents here, and I'm going to try and keep us moving. I want to be a little bit faster through it, so we're all very familiar with this. How do I recover fast? If you think about your challenges today, it's oftentimes somewhere across the spectrum of a major incident outage. There are things in there that are difficult to collaborate, difficult to coordinate, lack of visibility, especially when it's relating software teams. One of the things that Gartner found was because of cloud, they're now seeing this more collaborative approach, what they call level Z response. That means that this goes back to that team autonomy or team topology. You know, the tier structure. Hey, I'm gonna escalate this, and tier 2 says, no, I got to escalate this, and we've taken the time to do that. Because of what modern technology and cloud and what products do, I can bring a level of collaboration right out of the gate. We can actually realize team alignment by service. We can bring a level of chat ops in Slack or in Teams. We know which team is on call, so we're bringing the right team in. We can bring a considerable level of automation to validate and say, hey, is this really worth something of waking someone up? Or can you check that EC2 instance? These are all things that Jira Service Management has built into it. And then the last part, which is so important, we can expand the team learnings, meaning that everyone involved, I may be newer to the team, I'm learning from my colleagues as we're working instead of being in this tiered structure. This is something I see repeated across the board with organizations that I work with. And that's where Jira Service Management brings that level of capability to teams about continually being able to respond effectively and continuously learn to the incidents. We acquired Opsgenie several years back here. It is now fully integrated in the product. And what we're doing is we're actually, by September, October, the major incident response will be completely on this screen. Right now, it's 2 separate screens. We are very close to where you will actually have all of your major incidents. So if it's a P1, you have your on-call team there. You have the ability to launch into a command center, your chat ops capability integration, and you have the critical insights you need from a service configuration standpoint here. So if I click into that open web store, I might see, hey, what's changed recently? What other incidents are going on that I want to link to this? You'll see some of this in the demo. Last thing I'll mention, and I think it's really important, Google found a couple of years back that 70% of incident reviews are forgotten. Part of this is to blame because of tool vendors simply saying, hey, just document these couple of fields here, mark it as completed, and you do some documentation, and then someone hopefully runs the report. What we advocate for that's built into the product, because it's really a practice. If I'm going to learn for something, we've got to come together as a team and effectively learn how to do, P1, P2 major outage, blameless postmortems. So what we've done is the ability to do this in the products, as well as export it out into a collaborative environment like Confluence, where we can share those learnings. So to summarize incidents, and I'll get to the last section, the last practice of service requests, here's a couple of things to consider that were actually in this guide. And all of these resources, by the way, I'm sharing as I go through. The team's going to be able to share with you afterwards, and a follow-up. There'll be a lot of these that if you don't get these today, you'll have these. They're phenomenal ideas. Again, how do I take the practices and apply them to the way that my team would work? The last one I'm going to spend time on, we get on the other side of it. Everything has gone operational. I'm supporting the business internally. Let's say we have a new sales platform out and our sales team is working with customers. How do I get that value? How do I shift the value to them, shift left, to where they can find answers or get support more effectively? Service desk teams are the lifeblood of an organization, and we want to give them the ability to shift left to get value there and really not bury them in tickets to where their queue is just overloaded. And it comes in 2 ways. As we shift left, we want to do that with both knowledge and automation. As we do that, we have an increased agility in the way we respond. Also increases the focus on learning, because we're asking the question, well, what knowledge articles should I publish? What automation rules, where should I automate? And overall, Jira Service Management has a phenomenal offering in this area. It's been strong from the very beginning. And we continue to add to the overall capability. And I see that even in some of the roadmap of no code automation, the knowledge and the value that the portal delivers right out of the gate. We find about 30% reduction in email because the portal becomes valuable to them. So very significant in that the catalog is very adaptable. And you'll see it. Another thing that on the next slide, the most recent acquisition is Proforma. A very powerful, it'll be platform, and the new version ships in the fall here. It is usable today, a lot of customers using it. Very easy to build, better request interface, dynamic forms, rich forms in a way. And it opens up even an interaction model that they fill out the first form and I'm going to send them back the next one based on their role or their organization or their location. So great addition to the product, including 300 plus templates. That's coming as a built-in capability across our overall platform this fall. It's on our roadmap right now today. But from an overall perspective here, why does it stop? There we go. Where would I invest? Well, it's knowledge. And I think there's 3 key areas. As a team, you want to invest, first of all, the tools that make it easy to collaborate and share. Confluence is at the very heart of that, integrated with a team. And that's the first part. Do I have the right tools for authoring and sharing and managing that knowledge? The next part is really a practice, peer reviews. I met a customer not too long ago where they actually do a 30-day peer review and they give out an Amazon kudos card to whoever has the most knowledge articles that are the most valuable. So they're taking the metrics out that they have. And then they're also building into the learn and improve. They're looking at, hey, we've had a spike in these types of tickets recently. We need to really get ahead of this and get some FAQs out there. So this frontline team is empowered to deliver value. Whereas sometimes I've come across frontline teams that I'm just taking tickets. It's kind of, I'm looking to move on to do something else. They're actually investing in their frontline teams because they're so critical to the business. And I think this is an important part to bring them in and make them a part of it. Now, the last part here, I'm going to jump through the animation here because I want to talk about, as I wrap up, hopefully you've got a flavor of how practices fit to product and technology to really help a team create a support environment that's optimized for higher performance, higher delivery of capability. Jira Service Management is the heart of it, but it also fits with our other IT offerings as well. Confluence integrated, status page for incident, and then help as well, another recent acquisition for conversational ticketing. And so as we think about these areas of where Atlassian's currently offering, I want to give you a preview of some of this is on the public roadmap, and a couple of things are just slightly over the horizon. One that is on the roadmap is Help. Help is a phenomenal, just standalone platform in itself for conversational ticketing. We're bringing a native integration that will be available there for every customer. So from within Slack or Microsoft Teams, if someone wants to have that chat conversation to create a ticket, we see on the screen here that's actually going on and creating a ticket. That's how we get support within Atlassian today. I had an issue recently with an upgrade, and all I had was Slack on my phone, and the IT team resolved it very quickly. It was phenomenal. So great integration. It's out there available today, and there's something that's going to be even further enhancing and available to all customers. The ThinkTilt Proforma acquisition, they're leveraging that low-code, no-code form builder. And if you haven't seen it, it's like having Confluence for building dynamic, very rich forms. They're building the next UX, UI to that. So it's updating it. They're adding it to our platform. This will be a platform capability that will be coming, and that's on the roadmap for this fall. We've also announced not too long ago, and we're starting to bring greater customization to the portal. So the first thing they'll ship is the ability to sort on popularity, because I think of a furniture manufacturer out of the Midwest. They're a global organization. They start out with like 5 support projects, parts of their organization here with different resolver groups. There are well over 25 different projects and support parts of their organization in here. And they grew very quickly. And so this allows them to pin certain ones at the top, and then allow someone to come in because they might browse versus the searching. This is just getting started. There's actually more coming around the portal and customization. You can change the look and feel, but now we're going to allow you to bring even a greater level of customization to it. Another exciting thing is the embedded knowledge base. We're going to have the built-in KB right there, powered by Confluence. But to get started, you don't have to have Confluence. I think this is great as the organizations are getting started. Now, Confluence is phenomenal. It is the knowledge, collaboration, and sharing fabric of your organization. Once it gets in, it delivers so much, but it allows us really to tap in and use this as a part of this management of that knowledge around your service team. It also allows us to leverage the focus of AI and ML around bringing up quick, relevant knowledge articles for the agent side. We already do that with the portal. There's some fantastic things that are coming here in that capability, and that's on the roadmap. One other area, and this is just looking a little bit over the horizon, is we're going to bring greater control, autonomy with control, meaning that I'm going to allow teams to deliver their support. So I have an I&O team that's supporting our e-commerce platform. I'm going to give them that capability. And so let's say they have to connect with their software teams that still run behind the firewall. We are currently in early access to a new behind the firewall connector that I might connect to my software teams that are running on-prem. So we do have some, the trend is toward cloud, but we do have customers that run on-prem. And so we're going to provide that ability to connect those environments. One that's got, I really like, and I'm already seeing this is actually in early access in the product, is this AI-powered service management around, hey, what's the context here? Now, this was a early screenshot of it, but then in the product, they're showing the changes. So if I'm on an incident, it goes and says, hey, in the last week, here's the change you had, and then you can look out further. So it's going to save time for the agent saying, oh, well, this is probably what it's related. I'm going to go ahead and bring this change into this ticket. I'll bring the team in that's involved. But AI built on our smarts capability on our platform is very purposeful in where we're bringing this. It will also bring the ability to go ahead and save time for a team where they can focus on problems that matter. And what we're doing here is saying, hey, we've identified something here you should go ahead and apply to this ticket, and it's going to go ahead and help them. The other part, going back to service configuration management, is we're going to bring insights here that really matter around the information around these services. So as you see that service there, we're now bringing in, here's what's down, here's what's associated to it. So the services portion that sits inside of Insight is going to be fully extensible and bring additional value there of how it's connected, so that the team brings this up in an incident or change or a request of some type, they can make the appropriate data decision. We're also taking the change calendar and scheduling, and we're going to be able to detect and resolve potential conflicts as you're doing your scheduling. You can do this today with automation if you configure yourself. We're going to give you this out of the box with the freeze windows capability. Change calendar is there, so customers are using it. It's great. They just have additional capability we're going to be shipping in the coming months. So that's a preview of where we're going, what's coming, exciting things, a lot of innovation going on there. Highly recommend this guide. It kind of gives you the big picture of applying the products to the practices and giving you some areas there. So I'm going to hand back to Steve. I may have run just a little bit over, hopefully not too far over, but I will hold and see if there's any questions. Looks like there's a few. Maybe we'll take those when we get to Q&A. Back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Paul. That was fantastic. I really appreciate the details of that. Some of the things that Paul was showing us there, we're actually going to give you guys some product view overviews of how those actually work in the tool later on after the break. Paul, you were mentioning Proforma. There was one question that came in the chat, and I think you answered it, but I just wanted to clarify. Currently, Proforma still needs to be picked up in the marketplace.
It is.
It's going to be embedded in the product. Is that right?
Yeah, and there is a free light version if you just want to get it in and start using it with a certain use case. Then in the full app from the marketplace there, supported by Atlassian, and they've been working on putting the version that will be added in the cloud. Look for some communication around that. It is on the roadmap, but you'll hear more about that as we get closer to that release.